April 11th, 2004, Nevada, Las Vegas. A 32-year-old man named Ashley Revel walked into the Plaza Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, wearing a tuxedo he didn't even own. He carried with him a small bag containing $135,300 in cash. This wasn't just his life savings, it was his life. Every piece of clothing, every piece of furniture, his car, and his home had been sold to reach this exact moment. He had no bank account, no assets, and no backup plan. He was about to place everything he had on a single spin of a roulette wheel. If the ball landed on the wrong color, he would walk out of the casino with nothing but the rented shoes on his feet. This is the story of the ultimate gamble, a moment where logic was abandoned and fate was given total control. To understand why a sane person would do this, you have to understand the mindset of Ashley Revel. He wasn't a professional gambler or a mathematical genius. He was a man who became obsessed with a single question: what would happen if you truly risked it all? Most people talk about starting over, but Revel decided to force a total reset of his existence. He spent 6 months leading up to this moment, liquidating his entire life in London. He held garage sales where he sold his old sweaters for a few pounds. He sold his BMW. He sold his Rolex. He even sold his collection of golf clubs and every book on his shelf. He was stripping away his identity piece by piece until all that remained was the cash value of his soul. The news of this stunt began to spread, and soon a British television crew decided to follow him for a documentary titled Double or Nothing. But as the date approached, Revel hit a major roadblock. The famous mega casinos on the Las Vegas Strip, like the Bellagio and the MGM Grand, refused to accept the bet. They weren't afraid of losing the money. $135,000 is a drop in the bucket for a Vegas casino. They were afraid of the optics. They didn't want to be the brand associated with a man potentially committing financial on international television. If he lost, the footage of a man losing everything he owned would be a PR nightmare. Finally, the Plaza Hotel and Casino, a more old-school establishment in downtown Las Vegas, agreed to take the action. The atmosphere in the casino that morning was thick with tension. Revel stood at the table, surrounded by cameras and a crowd of tourists who had heard rumors of the madman who was betting his life. He hadn't even decided which color he was going to pick. He stood there watching the wheel spin, waiting for a gut feeling. The croupier called for the bets. Revel hesitated. He looked at the layout. He had spent months preparing for this, but in the final seconds, he was paralyzed. As the ball was released and began its rhythmic clicking against the wooden frets of the wheel, he made his move. He pushed the entire stack of chips onto red. The ball began to slow down. In roulette, the physics of the wheel are designed to be chaotic. The ball bounces off metal deflectors, jumping between pockets, teasing the line between victory and total ruin. For several seconds, the room went silent. The ball skipped over several black numbers, hit the edge of a divider, and then, with a final decisive thud, it settled. Red 7. In that instant, Ashley Revel's life doubled. He didn't scream or jump. He looked at the wheel with a sense of quiet shock. He had just won $270,600. The crowd erupted, but Revel did something even more shocking than the bet itself. He took his winnings, tipped the dealer $600, and walked away. He didn't try to ride the streak. He didn't place a second bet. He had looked into the abyss blinked, and he walked away with the prize. This story is often cited as a triumph, but it also highlights the terrifying nature of variance. If that ball had landed just 1 centimeter to the left or right, the narrative would be a tragedy about a man who lost his mind and his future in a Las Vegas basement. Revel used the money to start an online poker business, but the real value of the win wasn't the cash, it was the freedom. He had successfully performed a total reset and came out on top. It remains the most famous single spin in the history of gambling, a reminder that while the house usually wins, sometimes, just once, the universe rewards the boldest risk imaginable. The aftermath of the bet is where the story gets even more interesting from a psychological perspective. After the high of the win faded, Revel found himself in a strange position. He had the money, but he still had no stuff. He had no car, no home, and no furniture. He realized that the items he had sold didn't actually matter as much as he thought they did. He spent part of the money on a motorcycle trip across Europe. It was during this trip that he met the woman who would eventually become his wife. If he hadn't made the bet, he wouldn't have had the money for the trip. If he hadn't gone on the trip, he never would have met her. This chain of events reinforces the idea that extreme risk can lead to unpredictable rewards that have nothing to do with money. However, the gambling world is a revolving door. Revel's venture into the online gambling industry with his company, Poker UTD, was a calculated risk that didn't pay off as well as the roulette spin. In 2012, the landscape of online gambling changed overnight due to legal crackdowns. His company folded. It was a reminder that even after a legendary win, the mathematics of the world eventually settled the score. Revel returned to a more normal life, but he remains a permanent fixture in Las Vegas lore. He is the man who proved that for one fleeting moment, you can own the wheel. For those watching from the outside, the all-or-nothing spin represents a fantasy. We all wonder what we would do if we could just walk away from our responsibilities and put it all on the line. But the reality is that Revel was an outlier. Most people who try to replicate this level of risk end up as cautionary tales, not legends. The reason this story is told over and over is because it is the exception to the rule. In the world of high-stakes gambling, the only thing rarer than a man willing to bet everything is a man who wins it all and has the wisdom to never do it again. When you look at the mechanics of that specific spin, you see the thin margin of error. Roulette wheels are balanced to the fraction of a millimeter. The air resistance, the speed of the toss, and the friction of the felt all play a role. There was no system involved here. There was no biased wheel like in the stories of the Eudemons or Richard Jarecki. This was pure, unadulterated luck. It was a coin flip with a ball and a wheel. Today, the Plaza Hotel still talks about that day. It put the casino back on the map and reminded the world that downtown Vegas still held the spirit of the old-school gamblers. Ashley Revel moved on, but his name is forever etched into the history of the desert. He is a reminder that while you can't beat the house in the long run, you can certainly give them a heart attack in the short term. The man who sold everything proved that sometimes the only way to move forward is to be willing to lose everything you've ever had. In the years since, many have tried to contact Revel to ask him for advice or to see if he would do it again. His answer is almost always the same. He wouldn't. He recognizes that he caught lightning in a bottle. The stress of the 6 months leading up to the bet, the constant selling of his possessions, the judgment from his family and the fear of the unknown, was a weight that most people couldn't carry. It wasn't just a 60-second spin. It was a half year of psychological preparation for potential homelessness.